Welcome back. And, you know, it's interesting having two controlling men back to back. It takes a certain amount of energy to cut through those calls.
Tell me a little bit though about the what you did with Ed. I mean, you're very tough with him, and you zeroed in that he was lonely, and this was his first relationship in a while.
Well, the point is, there were a couple of options. I could have, been very, very sympathetic and brought him around to seeing that he was lonely and all that. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to get him I wanted to snap him for a second out of his controlling defenses so he could see that what he was doing was he was portraying a whole thing to me that was completely wrong. And when you get a person out of that, they have to be taken away from themselves by shock, and then they can look back and he can say, gosh, what I'm doing here is lousy. Now, it hurts his self-esteem for a little bit, but then he can say, wait a second, this pain is something I want to correct. I'll do something about it. And then I showed him what to do about it. So it's giving him, it's you create a discomfort, and you give the person a safe area to go to, which will give them a better point of view of themselves. Who's next?
Okay, we have Gary on line 12, and he feels that his life is being destroyed.
Gary?
Yes,
How old are you, Gary?
I'm 48.
What's wrong?
Well, I'm very despondent. I have a stepdaughter who's 16. When she was 14, she was out running around with a bunch of her friends at places she wasn't supposed to be and not calling home. And I took her to school, and I had a vice principal talk to her and everything. And about 4 days later, the social services came to the door and said, we understand you tried to rape your daughter last night and that you had been sexually molesting her all her life. And this kind of put me in shock. I didn't know quite what was going on. And I felt there was an incident. She was about 11 and a half. Asleep on the couch. She was asleep on top of me. I woke up. I fondled her. I didn't even realize it was her. I was asleep. I apologized immediately, and that's the only incident that ever took place.
How did she get on top of you?
As I remember it, she came in the room saying, the couch was my bed. My ex-wife, now ex-wife, and I had not slept together for a number of years. I was not having affairs or doing anything. She just had reached a point in her life because she had been molested, I guess, where she felt that sex was not an unnecessary thing. Because I loved my family, I stayed with my family, and I slept on the couch, and we had a good relationship in many other ways. Sex is not everything, but it did put a strain on relationship for a long period of time.
Well, it just goes to show that although sex may not be everything, that when it changes in a way like this and is indicative of underlying problems, to ignore the change in sexual habits is to ignore feelings that are coming up, and also, in your particular case, is to ignore the fact that the whole house was filled with a kind of feeling of molestation and pain that was being recalled, and it became part of what was going on in the house, even if you were innocent. You follow what I'm saying?
I had no, I mean, I didn't even know that apparently that my stepdaughter had possibly been molested by her natural father, and I didn't know this until all this came out.
Had she?
And her mother was not sure, but she was almost sure, and I was.
Why did you guys get divorced?
Pardon me?
Why were you divorced from the mother?
Well, when this happened, my stepdaughter refused to talk to me. I think she was very angry. I busted her up with her boyfriend and her friends. I found out that she was 14, and they were spending the night there, and there was sex and drugs and rock and roll and all those stuff going over at this home. And I happened to find out, and I broke up what was going on because I felt I was trying to be a responsible parent, and said that she could no longer go there. Their friends could come under supervision to our house, but she could no longer spend the weekends over there.
And where is it now?
Pardon me?
Where is the situation now?
Where is it now? This went to court and everything. The court listened to everything, and the therapist and everything, and felt that I was telling the truth. And they said that the Social Service said she could come back home, but she refused to come back home as long as I was around.
So where are you now with all this?
Well, I'm living alone.
Emotionally, I mean.
Pardon me?
Emotionally.
Well, I guess I've lost my home, my family, everything I ever worked for. I love them very much. I'm still stunned from a lot of this.
Do you still see your ex-wife?
Pardon me?
Do you still see your ex-wife?
Only time I see her is we happen to work at the same place, and I see her. She is. She started out to seem to be in my corner, but as time went on, it's like, right or wrong, if she doesn't want to see you, my place is with my daughter, and you're going to have to leave.
So what are you going to do?
I have been sitting around for about 7, 8 months, not knowing exactly what to do. I know I have to start a life or do something, but it's very difficult. I'm having trouble letting go. You know, they.
What are you holding on to?
Pardon me?
What are you holding on to?
Probably the memories of what was good in the relationship, and that I did love them deeply. And
all that can be true, but you know, the fact is that there are some people who are spoilers, who take a situation, and for whatever reason, they make it bad. And then the situation that you once loved, that was once so positive and good, just isn't the same thing anymore. And you have to accept that. Your wife won't have anything to do with you. This child is still vindictive. And you've been had.
is there any possibility in the future that my stepdaughter will come around and we can have some sort of relationship? I was the primary parent. I did most of the raising. My wife was either at work or at school. She had a lot of ambition, and I really...
Well, is there any relationship between the two of you at all?
My daughter and my wife.
Your daughter.
She refuses to talk to me. I don't even understand why. I don't understand her anger.
Well, because you represent the projected anger of her own guilt onto you. So she's going to hate the part of herself she hates by rejecting you. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It's kind of perverted, but it makes sense.
It makes sense, but
it's painful.
It's painful. I believe what you're saying, because that's what I've sort of felt like it was, but I didn't know of something that she was able to overcome in her life so that we could have a relationship at some point in life.
Maybe you can, but I think waiting on it is to set yourself up again and to make yourself hostage to an adolescent's rebellious activity which may not change until her 20s. And by then, you know, her mother may remarry. You might as well get on with your life.
Well, I guess that's sort of where I'm at 48. It's hard to get on with your life.
Well, it's worse not to get on with your life.
Well, this is true.
You've got to let go of the pain. You have to know that you're treated unfairly. And you know the old saying, sharper than a serpent's tooth is an ungrateful child.
It's so painful. We were so close.
I know, and that gave her her power. And instead of trying to reason it through, maybe letting go of it will give you the strength you need to do what you have to do and to find yourself at last. Tough. The things people have to live with, the bad agreements, the poor settlements of a relationship. Sometimes you just have to let go of it and save what can be saved and let go of the pain. We'll be back. We've got a lot of interesting calls. You stay tuned.